The ITA Women's Collegiate Tennis Hall of Fame, now in its third year, celebrates a century of progress in women's tennis. Tonight, the Hall of Fame welcomes 5 new inductees who join a phenomenal group of players, coaches, and contributors. The 14 players in the Hall of Fame have smashed every barrier in women's tennis. Collectively, their achievements include 2 national collegiate singles titles, 4 Olympic gold medals, 52 years of Whiteman and Fed Cup play, and 261 Grand Slam titles. From Hazel Whiteman to Althea Gibson to Billie Jean King, each has paved the way for succeeding generations.
I started tennis in '55, and all the other inductees that have been here tonight and who we've honored, I kept a scrapbook. I read every history book I could. I read Tennis with Heart at least 15 times. I kept every newspaper clipping. Shirley Fry has no idea how big she was in my life. And I don't think we could have made our new breakthroughs and created new traditions. I know I couldn't have been a part of it without having such appreciation for the history of the sport. And I know our love and our passion to either be a part of it or to play is what brings us all together here tonight. And I would just like to thank everyone for that, and for us to always remember that's our common ground.
The Hall of Fame's 5 coaches pioneered intercollegiate play. Without these coaches, there would be no Title IX and no national championships for women. They continue to inspire us today.
To those of you who are the players here today, the future stretches ahead of you, and you have been reaping some benefits of some of the hard work of some of the early players, women who are being inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight. They were my role models too. And I hope that in the years to come you'll have an opportunity to return some of the things that may seem pretty obvious to you, but they weren't obvious 20 or 30 years ago. So 20 or 30 years from now, it'll be time for you to have an opportunity to contribute back to the game. It's a great game, and it's provided a lot of joyful memories, and I hope you share those in the future to come. Thank you.
The 4 contributors include senior doubles champion Betsy Nagelson-McCormick, as well as the only man in the Women's Collegiate Hall of Fame, Mark McCormick, founder and CEO of International Management Group.
Tonight, I'd like to do something I rarely do, and that's say something nice about my husband. His dedication to the sport of tennis is extraordinary. I live with it day in and day out, and his true love for sport, but especially tennis, I may have had a small bit to do with that, but his true desire to make tennis better is very sincere, and it's amazing what he wants to do, not only for juniors, for the College of William & Mary, and for the professional sport is quite special. And I'd like to say thank you to my husband, Mark, for dedicating his life to the sport of tennis.
The ITA and the College of William & Mary are proud to support the Women's Collegiate Tennis Hall of Fame. We salute the champions, past and present, who have made such a difference for women in sport.
If you think landing on the moon was a giant step for mankind, you're wrong. Landing at William & Mary is a super step for women's collegiate athletics. Okay, bye.
This is the 3rd year that the College and the International Tennis Association have celebrated the achievements of women in collegiate tennis by inducting players, coaches, and contributors to the ITA's Women's Collegiate Tennis Hall of Fame. May I say that as president of William & Mary, I'm especially pleased to participate in this induction because this year's class includes one of our own, Donna Floyd Fales. All of the inductees, players Darlene Hart of Pomona College, Carol Grabner of Cal State Los Angeles, and Donna Fales, and coaches Lois Blackburn Bryan of Mary Baldwin College, and Ginny Mack of Rollins College, all are remarkable women. They are much more than great players and coaches. They are legends of the game and willing pioneers for all women in sports. Their careers span almost 50 years of remarkable strides in women's tennis, from grassroots to the international level. Coaches Lois Blackburn-Bryan and Ginny Mack pioneered women's intercollegiate tournaments without the benefit of athletic scholarships and travel budgets. Imagine that. The players, Darlene Hard, Carol Graebner, and Donna Fales, all from the pre-Open era, received no compensation during their competitive years. They played and they coached for the love of the game, and they set a standard of excellence that paved the way for today's great collegiate and professional champions. I hope that everyone here has had a chance to visit the Hall of Fame. If you haven't, you really ought to go there. It is located on the second floor of the McCormick-Nagelson Tennis Center. It continues to grow. It includes trophies and memorabilia from many of the inductees. For those who care about tennis, it is worth a visit, and we are going to work hard to make it better and better and better and better every year. Now, there are several people who I think very rightly want to bring you greetings this evening. The first is Louise Gingler, chairman of the ITA Women's Operating Committee and the coach of the Princeton tennis team. Louise is representing David Benjamin, executive director of the ITA, who could not be with us because of his responsibilities as Princeton's tennis coach. Louise has a very close association with the College of William & Mary through her sister Marion, who played #1 on the William & Mary tennis team from 1980 to 1984. Louise, would you please come and share your message with all of us?
Thank you very much. Yes, it's indeed a pleasure to be here, and on behalf of the ITA, I would certainly like to welcome everybody and congratulate our 1997 Hall of Fame inductees. I would also like to acknowledge Mark McCormick and Betsy Nagelson for their support of college tennis. Our ITA Collegiate Hall of Fame now has a beautiful home in the McCormick-Nagelson Tennis Center, and I certainly hope everyone here will get a chance to view the great displays out there. A very warm thanks to the College of William & Mary, and yes, my sister had 4 wonderful years here, could not entice her to come to Princeton. But a very special thanks to President Sullivan and Athletic Director Terry Driscoll, and a special thanks to Millie West. Millie serves as the curator for our ITA Hall of Fame, and is largely through her time and efforts that all of this is put together and made possible. Also thanks to our ITA Collegiate Hall of Fame Committee that meets each year, and our chair, Jesse Dwyer, who assists Millie in helping with all this. Finally, I'd like to also acknowledge Rolex, Watch USA for their role and all they've done for college tennis. They sponsor a number of collegiate programs, including a very special program, the Rolex Achievement Awards for both tennis and golf. And in our presence today is our 1997 winner of the Rolex Golf Award is Mark McCormick. So maybe also offer congratulations to you for that very special award. The tournament taking place this weekend, and again, I hope everyone will get out to watch some of the great tennis. It's our Rolex, our Eastern Regional Championships, and it's one of 8 tournaments taking place across the country this week for women's Division I tennis. We also have going on at the same time 8 events for the men's Division I tennis. And in addition to that, Rolex also sponsors another 63 tournaments for the small colleges for Division II, III, NAIA, and junior colleges, men and women. The winners of all these events play off, and the final championship is in Dallas, Texas, where Rolex brings in a number of special guests and speakers, including Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova. We've had Virginia Wade, Mary Jo Fernandez, Stan Smith, and a number of outstanding players come be part of that culminating event. So we're thankful for all our supporters and all those who have contributed to college tennis. And again, a very special thanks to this year's inductees and their very unique and special contributions to the game of college tennis. Thank you.
And now we turn to the most important, indeed the purpose of our evening, and that is the introduction of each inductee. I can think of no more appropriate person to perform this very happy duty than my good friend Mark McCormick, an imaginative leader and visionary in the world of sports. Mark is the donor of the Collegiate Hall of Fame, and, as the film pointed out, the first male inductee in the Women's Tennis Hall of Fame. Being first is not unusual for Mark. He was first on the William & Mary golf team. He was the first to initiate a sports management firm, which, after more than 30 years, is still preeminent in the field he created. He gave the first women's tennis scholarship awarded at William & Mary. He is the first private individual to give William & Mary a sports facility. He is the first non-Swede to be named Commander of the Royal Order of the Polar Star by the King of Sweden for his achievements on behalf of the Nobel Foundation. He is also the first member of the class of 1951 to receive an honorary degree from the College of William & Mary, which he did from our Chancellor, Lady Thatcher, last May. And equally important, I think, he is a proud William & Mary parent. Would you please join me in welcoming this planet's most remarkable sports figure, Mark Hume McCormick. Mark?
Thank you very much. It's after that introduction, it's hard to really say anything, but I think most of you should realize that I'm really here tonight in a tennis vernacular as a lucky loser. And that's because I'm here as a substitute for my wife, Betsy Nagelson, who is going to perform this function. She'd intended to be here, but she's an expectant mother next month, and she's unable to travel at the current time. But she wanted me to say hello to everybody here, her many friends at the college, many of the inductees and the coaches that are here. It was a great privilege for me to be asked by Millie to become the lucky loser of the evening and to help with these festivities. And obviously I wanted very much to be here. The years that I spent at the College of William & Mary were the fondest years, they give me the fondest memories of any years in my life. It's really hard for me to express what this college did for me. I majored in French. I went on to law school at Yale and then went on into the business world. But just today I spent half an hour with my French professor, Marcel Rebussin, who is 92 years old. And he is as sprightly and bright as I remember him back some 35, 40 years ago. And he was out here at the tennis center today. We did a little video for the college, and it was just great to see him. What I gave to the college in terms of the tennis center is really nothing compared to what this college gave to me, and I really very sincerely mean that. Anyway, it's an honor to be here this year, as I've said, and this is certainly a very distinguished class of inductees. So let's get into the program, and without further ado, let the cameras roll on our first inductee, Lois Blackburn Bryan, beloved coach at Mary Baldwin College in Stanton, Virginia.
She was a winning coach with a winning smile. Lois Blackburn Bryan was 46 when she began her college coaching career. She quickly became a national force in women's collegiate tennis. For 20 straight years, from 1969 to 89, her Mary Baldwin teams never had a losing season. Her many champions included Chrissy Gonzalez, Mid-Atlantic singles winner and Puerto Rico's top-ranked player. Blackburn also directed local, regional, and national tournaments and wrote a popular book on the subject. In 1980, she received the USTA's Educational Merit Award for her outstanding contributions to tennis. Somehow, she found limitless hours for her players. "I want to thank you for being such a strong, positive influence," one student wrote. You took so much time and energy to help me. In 1989, Blackburn capped her career with the ITA's National Coach of the Year award. Her brilliant smile never faded, reflecting the joy she brought to others throughout her life.
Wherever there was tennis, you would find Lois in its midst. She played it, she coached it, she promoted it, and she wrote about it. When her handbook, Planning and Conducting Tennis Tournaments, was published, it sold out immediately and has been reprinted many times. Based on her long history of running first-rate tournaments, it quickly became the tournament director's Bible for running tennis tournaments and tennis championships. You've just heard about Lois's many awards and successes as a coach, but you haven't heard about her non-professional life. That part of her life was just as energetic and productive. She was a devoted wife and mother, an avid gardener, a faithful member and teacher in her church, a fundraiser for her alma mater and her church, an officer in many civic organizations, and a featured speaker on subjects other than tennis at national and international meetings. She was a doer, and also she loved people, and people loved her. Tennis and the state of Virginia suffered a tragic loss last fall when Lois died suddenly after a short illness. Replacing her is going to be an impossible task. Her energy and her dedication to tennis and to life will be sorely missed. Mary Baldwin College and the players she coached are in the process of preserving her legacy by erecting a tennis pavilion on the Mary Baldwin campus, which will bear her name. With us tonight are 7 representatives from Mary Baldwin: the Dean of the College, Jim Lott, and his wife, Pam; the Vice President of the University Advancement, Mark Atchison, and his wife, Colleen; Betty Kegley and Gwen Walsh, 2 faculty members who worked alongside Lois during her many years at Mary Baldwin; Donna Miller, the current tennis coach, and 2 current members of the Mary Baldwin tennis team, Courtney Shaw and Elizabeth Walsh. We also would like to welcome Lois's many close friends in the audience who've come from all over Virginia and neighboring states to be here in honor of Lois. And thank you all for coming. I'd also like to now take great pleasure in introducing Lois's immediate family: her husband, Charles Bryan, her daughter, Diana Blackburn, her daughter, Rachel, and her fiancé, Tom Littlejohn; Lois's younger daughter, Elisa Paris, her husband, Ken, and their children, John and Cameron. Elisa and Diana and Charles will accept the award on behalf of the family. Will you please come forward?
I'm Diana, and I'm the oldest. I've been trained to say that by this one. It is an honor and a privilege to be here tonight. We thank you for honoring our mother, for her contributions, and for recognizing what a special person she was. She was special to everyone who knew her for many different reasons.
If we had to choose one word to describe her, it would be integrity. This was the basis for every endeavor in her life. She was wife, mother, grandmother, friend, counselor, confidant, coach. But in each of these roles, she was above all teacher.
Many of you knew her professionally. Many of you knew her personally. But we would like to share with you some things she taught us as daughters. She taught us that life was to be lived as active participants, not merely as onlookers. From cooking to sewing, from sports to academics, from love of family to love of God, she believed that life and education opened the doors to life. She taught us that any job doing was worth doing well. Mediocrity to her was an excuse. Excellence was as simple as a best effort.
She taught us teamwork, and that is why we are both accepting this honor on her behalf. She would have felt it necessary, however, to stand within elbow range of both of us to encourage us to behave appropriately. On Sunday morning, even into our college years, it was not uncommon for her to slip between us during a hymn, which we were intentionally singing off-key, as our dad stared at us in indignation from the choir loft.
Teamwork is her legacy. Building teams was her forte. She was perhaps a woman ahead of her time. Her determination to help others succeed touched everyone with whom she came in contact. She could make satin out of a cow's ear. And when life handed her lemons, she always knew whether to make lemonade or negotiate for cherries. She did not perceive obstacles as anything but opportunities.
Mom was one who spoke very little of her many achievements. It was only upon her death that even her own family fully realized the magnitude of her achievements and the many lives she had touched. Of all of her achievements, she was proudest of her relationships with her family, her friends, and her teams. She was a mom to many and an advocate for anyone who needed her. In her eyes, her accomplishments were only made possible through the accomplishments of others.
If she could be here with us, she would have said to all of us, "I wouldn't have been here tonight if not for the winning spirits, hard work, and dedication of all of my students."
She would continue on saying, "A coach is only as good as her products, the players. The coach can only teach and shape the players, but it is the players who bring honor to the coach." Thank you all so very much. I am honored. We say, here's to you, Coach Blackburn. We love you, Mom.
How did a coach like Lois Blackburn get involved with a minister and missionary? That story is the story that a friend of ours who is here tonight made possible, because she linked us together, and the result of that is our marriage 7 years ago. If she had lived 8 more days, it would have been 7 years. One of the things that I was looking for after I lost my first wife, I had five requirements. I prayed about this very much, and I listed 5 things that I wanted in a person that I might meet. Wasn't telling God what to do, but I felt like He needed to hear from me about that. And one of those, that she would be a person that was active. Now, if you know Lois Blackburn, you know that God outdid Himself when He provided Lois Blackburn with me, because she's the most active person that I've ever known, not only on the tennis court and not only in her coaching, but in her life. And I wanted someone who was active, and she was. And we went to 8 countries of the world and opened up partnerships, and when they found out her talent, they used her in many different ways in conferences in these nations where we went to set up partnerships. The other thing that I wanted in a person was that it would be someone in my own world. I had thought about someone that I wouldn't, that was in the ministerial world, had lost her husband, but the Lord gave me a person in another world, and this last 7 years has been one of the most meaningful in my life, because I've been introduced to the tennis world, the people of the tennis world, and I'm grateful to you how you have enriched my life in this regard. I never did beat Lois in tennis. In fact, I didn't beat her in much of anything as far as the sports world is concerned, but I did beat her in golf. It took me a long time to get her on the golf course. But Lois was always a coach, regardless of what game she was playing or the game of life. She was a coach. And the first time I played golf with her, I was beating her pretty badly, but I wasn't playing very good. And she said, "You know how you can correct that problem that you have?" You know, that was early in our marriage, and if it had been later in our marriage, I might have said it, but I thought, you know, I'm beating you pretty badly here, you know, and you're trying to tell me how to play golf. But I didn't. I swallowed, and she said, "If you'll do thus and so, it will correct your problem." And I did thus and so, and it did correct my problem, and I beat her a little bit more still in that game. She never did beat me in golf. She taught me a great deal about play. She taught me a great deal more about the game of life, and I'll always be grateful for these 7 years being the husband of Lois Blackburn Bryan. Thank you.
Tennis writer Allison Danzig called her game the epitome of grace and talent. But Donna Floyd Fales was best known for her intelligence and just plain class, on and off the court. Raised in Virginia, Fales was coached by her father Don, a top senior player. At 15, she won the national championship in her age group. In 1959, while a student at William & Mary, she captured another national title, Collegiate Singles Champ. Ranked in the USTA Top 10 from 1960 to 66, Fales was a team member and captain in Whiteman Cup play. She was also a 4-time captain of the U.S. Fed Cup team, scoring international victories in 1967 and 69. Over the next 3 decades, she devoted countless hours to tennis, especially Arthur Ashe's National Junior Tennis League. For her exceptional contributions to the game, Donna Fales has been honored with 4 top USTA Service Awards. "Tennis gave us a lot," she said. "We understand the value of giving back to tennis."
It's a particular pleasure to participate in the induction of Donna Floyd Fales, a fellow graduate of William & Mary. Welcome home, Donna, to William & Mary and Virginia. Because even though Donna has resided in Florida for many years, Virginia was instrumental in shaping her life. She grew up here. She played much of her tennis here. She was educated here. She met her husband here. Her daughter, Cooley, also graduated from William & Mary. Donna has been inducted into the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame and now to the ITA Tennis Hall of Fame, founded in Virginia. Donna's tennis career began at a very early age, and one of the most amazing aspects of that career is how she had been able to play tennis at the national and international level while juggling many other balls in the air. When she held her highest U.S. rankings, she was still studying for a degree at William & Mary. She was active in a sorority, she was playing on the tennis team, and she was dating her future husband. Having 3 children slowed her down a little bit, but not enough to keep her from winning at least 1 tennis title each year from 1964 to 1979. Tennis was always a family affair for Donna, and she kept that tradition in her own family. Her father, Don, was her only coach, and they played together all the time. At 15, Donna was the youngest to ever win the Women's Virginia State Championship, and that same year, her father won the men's championship. Donna and her husband, Gordon, won the Florida State Mixed Doubles Championship, and she and her daughter, Cooley, played in many mother-daughter tournaments, including the U.S. Mother-Daughter Championships. After graduating from William & Mary, she began immediately giving back to the game, and now 35 years later, she's still an active volunteer in a variety of USTA programs. An earlier statement written by a reporter accurately describes Donna. He said, as a history major, Donna studied the Renaissance period, and now she's living it. Sharing this evening with Donna are her father, Don Floyd, her mother, Evelyn, her husband, Gordon, and their 3 children, Emerson, Floyd, and Cooley, plus the many, many good friends and former William and Mary colleagues that are here. Donna, would you please come forward?
Well, it is indeed a pleasure to be home again. As Mark actually took so many of my lines, and so much has happened here for me at the College of William and Mary. But I want to say that I am blessed to have my family here with me tonight, my mother and father, Don and Evelyn Floyd, who are the reason I am standing here before you tonight. With their love and support throughout my tennis career, Emerson, Floyd, and Cooley. Cooley is a graduate of William and Mary, and now I'm a proud parent of a graduate. And Gordon, who is my loving, supportive husband for 35 years. It is an honor to be included in this group of so many past champions, Hazel Whiteman, Pauline Betts, Althea Gibson. These are people who represent the history of the game to me. I grew up reading about them, and in many cases was so fortunate to have met them. And now to be inducted with Darlene and Carol, who were friends, foes, and it's so nice to be together with you all again and to be here. I think one of the things that is perhaps the most meaningful for me is to be inducted along with my coach, Millie West, who was my coach during college here, and Millie, whose vision and perseverance led to the establishment of the Women's Intercollegiate Hall of Fame, one of her many contributions to collegiate tennis. But Millie was the coach. I think this was her first tennis team that I believe she coached. We were young. We both learned from each other. We had a lot of fun, and we had some successes. And I think I share all of my college achievements with Millie. I was lucky to have chosen William and Mary as my college. I met my husband here, and it's been one of the greatest chapters of my life. We've been so lucky. So many of us have benefited from people like Millie, Lois Blackburn, Jenny Mack, Ann Pittman, many of you here in this room tonight. And we're lucky to have these women who've contributed to collegiate tennis. So Millie, this evening, as far as I'm concerned, is much yours as mine, and I hope one day I'll be sitting in that audience with you standing up here. Thank you.
Her service to tennis has been remarkable. A top-ranked player in the 60s, Carol Caldwell Graebner started out on California's public courts. She attended Los Angeles State College with Billie Jean King, a lifelong friend. Both players received coaching from the great Alice Marble. Excelling at net play, Graebner scored big in doubles in the first U.S. Fed Cup match. She made 2 more Fed Cup appearances and captained the 1970 team. She was also a competitor and captain in Whiteman and Bonnie Bell Cup play. In 1965, Graebner rose to #1 in world doubles rankings. The same year, she captured the U.S. title. She became Australian doubles champ the following year. She's stayed in the game ever since. Vice president at Tennis Week and a tireless volunteer, she currently chairs the Fed Cup committee. The USTA has honored Graebner with both its Service Bowl and Sarah Palfrey Danzig Award. Her life exemplifies the words engraved on the Service Bowl: sportsmanship, fellowship, and service to tennis.
Carol Caldwell Graebner held a world ranking of #4 in singles, and as the video just said, #1 in doubles in 1965 when she married Clark Graebner, another top 10 player. Her game was destined to take her to the top of the world rankings in both singles and doubles when she made the decision to retire from competition and raise a family. Carol never regretted making that decision, and her daughter Cameron and her son Clark benefited significantly. When she stopped competing on the court, she turned to the other aspect of tennis, the corporate side, and she was very successful in everything that she undertook: radio, television, advertising, commentating, and corporate sales, and she did it in the highly competitive New York market. She continues to work in corporate sales and administration for Sports Investors, Inc., and she's Vice President of National Advertising for Tennis Week magazine. Her long career in New York has been a bonus for the USTA, as the association has kept her busy as a volunteer for more than 35 years. Tonight, attending with Carol are her very dear friends, Mrs. Louis Strauss of Washington, D.C., and Joanne Sella, sports consultant from New York. Carol, will you please come forward and receive your award?
I think I'm going to cry. Not bad from a poor kid from Santa Monica, California that learned to play tennis on the public park courts. My lifelong friend, Billie Jean, we met when we were 12. She was from Long Beach and I was from Santa Monica. And we were destined to have a relationship and a friendship that has now lasted over 40 years. That says what our game is all about. Two little girls who learned tennis, started to travel internationally, and really just played because we loved it. I went on to raise a family. Billie Jean went on to become one of our greatest champions of all time. The time that I spent in college, I actually had to beg my parents to go to college. They said, what do you need to do that for? And of course, in those days, not all women went to college. And I said, well, I want to learn, but I want to play tennis too, and I can play with the guys. They let the girls play with the guys. And so that was one of the reasons I went to California State College, and Billie Jean went there as well. And when Millie asked me to send some memorabilia, I actually found the little 2x2 student body card, and I went to school for 1 year for $47 that included books. I thought some of you in the back of the room might appreciate that in terms of what the tuition is now and what your college education is worth. I have been very blessed with a wonderful career, a wonderful family, and with wonderful friends. And I've had my share of wins, and I've had my share of the downs in that. But I must tell you, the most important thing that tennis has given me has been the opportunity to see the world and to meet wonderful people like all of you in this room, and to try to help the young players that are coming up, and many of you that are here tonight from the colleges playing in the tournament. Tennis is really a sport for a lifetime. It's given me a wonderful life, and I wish this for all of you so desperately. I want to particularly thank Millie West for being so persistent in getting a Hall of Fame and recognizing women in intercollegiate sports, and particularly in tennis. And also to Mark for your wonderful gift, not only in honoring William and Mary, but honoring our great sport of tennis, not just for the women, but for all of our sport. And it is people like you that make our sport so wonderful.
She won it all: titles, trophies, and headlines. Everything but money. Darlene Hard was the last of the great amateurs, retiring just before the Open era. For each of her 7 Wimbledon titles, she earned £10, about $18. A California girl, Hard learned tennis on public courts, coached by her mother Ruth. In 1957, she entered Pomona College on an academic scholarship. Athletic scholarships weren't available to women at the time, even Grand Slam champions. The next year, in 1958, Hard took the singles title at the first National Collegiate Tournament for women. She went on to capture a total of 21 Grand Slam titles. She was also a 4-time Whiteman Cup competitor and played on the first Fed Cup team. Hard was always a crowd pleaser. She especially enjoys teaching children and has given years of free tennis clinics. Now working at USC, Hard has no regrets about her amateur status. We toured for country and flag, she said. I loved it. I love tennis.
It's a very special pleasure to have Darlene's mother, Ruth, with us here tonight. She was Darlene's coach and obviously a very good player, because the story goes that Darlene was 18 years old before she could beat her mother. And if my calculations are correct, that was only 3 years before she made it to the singles finals at Wimbledon against Althea Gibson. Once Darlene was on the tour, her game was influenced by several great players: Louise Bruff, Alice Marble, Sarah Palfrey-Danzig, and Hazel Whiteman. When Darlene traveled east, she would always visit Mrs. Whiteman at Longwood. They grew close, and any time Darlene traveled east, regardless of how far it was from Longwood, she would drive to Mrs. Whiteman's once a week to mow Mrs. Whiteman's lawn. Can you imagine that happening today? Well, the green thumb she developed carries over to her own rose garden today. Best illustrating Darlene's humorous side and why she was such a crowd pleaser on the tour came during an incredible doubles match in 1969, 5 years after she had retired from regular competition. She and Frankie Durr were playing in the U.S. Championships against Margaret Court and Virginia Wade. They were down 6-love, 2-love, when Darlene looked up at the scoreboard and said, "Frankie, we've got to do something. Those zeros are huge, and they're as tall as we are." Frankie said, "Darlene, how can you joke at a time like this?" Darlene replied, "If we don't start joking and get loose, we're going to lose." Frankie said, "Stop clowning and go back and serve." And Darlene did, and they won love 6, 6-4, 6-4. This has been a very special year of recognition for Darlene Hard. As a past French champion, she was honored at the French Open, and as a back-to-back U.S. champion, she was flown to the United States Open in September to participate in the dedication of the new Arthur Ashe Stadium, and now she's flown here to Williamsburg for us to add to those honors by inducting her into the ITA Tennis Collegiate Hall of Fame. Lisa Beckett, current coach at Pomona College, and former player Mercedes Fitchett are here as representatives of Darlene's alma mater. Darlene, would you please come forward?
I hate being here. I am not a speaker by choice. I loved the game of tennis. And like Carol and Billy, we grew up on the public courts of Southern California. And we had such a great time. And I'm really sorry that the kids today really aren't as happy as we were. We really were happy kids. We got to travel in all the countries around the world. We got to meet wonderful, wonderful people. And this is what this week has been. These 2 days have been for us here today. I would like to thank my mother for coming. She hasn't been able to come to many of my tennis matches, and this year, as you were told, we've been to Paris, we went to New York, and now we're here. And I must say that this one is extra special. I found out more about myself here with what was on the screen than I could remember. Oh yeah, that did happen. And it was special to see Carol, and it was special to see Donna. And I'm sure that to have Lisa Beckett represent Pomona College and be here is beyond me. When she called and said, "Would you mind?" I said, "Why would you want to?" I can't imagine such a thing. I really appreciate it. And with that, I thank all of you for remembering an old timer. We certainly did play the game for what we thought was the glory of the game. We played for the titles. There was no money out there. But we had a wonderful time. And in groups of 17 or 21, we'd climb on a plane late at night, play the tournament the next day, get to the finals if we could, climb on a plane the next day, go to another tournament. And we had a wonderful time, and I thank you all for remembering us.
Coach Ginny Mack knew her players' hearts and minds as well as she knew their tennis skills. That approach paid off. In 22 years at Rollins College, Coach Mack racked up 11 top 5 finishes in Division I nationals. Mack was an intramural tennis player at the University of Missouri who originally came to Rollins to coach golf. "I really had to become a student of the game," she said. She devoted herself to raising the standards of intercollegiate play and was twice named Coach of the Year in Florida. But her first priority was her players. "Everything we needed was there," said Nancy Yergin, a 2-time All-American. "Everything ran perfectly." When her student Wendy White captured the national collegiate singles title in 1980, Coach Mack reacted with characteristic pride. Following her retirement in 1986, players from the 75 team endowed a scholarship in her name, honoring their beloved Miss Mack. Just go out and do your best, she'd tell her players, and judging by her life's success, Ginny Mack has followed her own good advice.
Many coaches today might scoff at her coaching style, her easygoing manner, her lack of discipline, but few coaches will ever be as successful or as dedicated or as deeply loved by her players as Ginny Mack. From 1964 to 1985, her Division I teams at Rollins College were never out of the top 20 national rankings, and that's for 21 years. She accomplished this in spite of the lack of scholarships and the lack of travel budgets. Wendy Overton tells a story about the earlier days when she and several other players qualified for the National in St. Paul, Minnesota. There wasn't enough money in the budget to send the coach, so the players went alone. They were sitting in a little restaurant in Minneapolis when who drives up in her car? Miss Mack. She'd driven all the way from Florida to be with her players, and that was vintage Ginny Mack. Wendy White, a national collegiate champion, recalls another year when Rollins met UCLA at the national championships. UCLA had 3 coaches, a trainer, and all the tennis gear imaginable. The Rollins team had to wait as UCLA huddled for a pep meeting before going onto the court. On the side, Miss Mack simply told her team, "Do your best, have fun." They did, and they defeated UCLA. With her induction tonight, Ginny joins 2 other great Rollins players already in the Hall of Fame, Shirley Fry Irvin and Pauline Betts. Here with Ginny this weekend to join in the celebration are her brother, John Mack, and his family, her sister, Marcia Sudholt, and her daughter, plus many other Macks from around the country. Actually, you might call this a Mack attack. Many of her former players have also made a pilgrimage here to Williamsburg to share this weekend with their beloved Miss Mack. Welcome to all of you. And Ginny, would you please come forward?
Thank you, Mark, for those words of introduction. And I need to thank Millie West and her staff for, I know, a hectic time with the Mack family, plus all my darling players who came. Thank you, Millie. I hope you recover from this weekend. I also want to thank the committee members who thought me worthy of this honor. I'd like to also congratulate my fellow recipients, fellow inductees this evening. When my name was placed in nomination, it was as though I was suspended in time. There was no sound, no movement, and then all of a sudden the words took meaning. We're here, and now it's a reality. You've heard of the accomplishments, but you haven't heard how they came about. First, a career such as this has to be made up of many blessings. I had parents who taught me the great lessons of life: service, responsibility, seeing a task through to its conclusion. I have loving and supporting families, and every branch of that tree is represented here tonight. I was fortunate enough to be associated with Rollins, a great institution, who so willingly helped me out in many respects. The administration, the faculty believed in what we were doing, and they supported us. Of course, a lot of times I had to get on my knees and beg a little bit, but they always came through for us. Actually, there are people also who were very helpful. Some of the alumni, Nancy Reed, Betty Pratt, Norm Copeland, our men's coach, who always saw that we had courts available. There was also who I consider my mentor, and that person was the late Ed Faulkner, who taught me the really subtle aspects of the game. So to him, I am always and will be deeply grateful. But then we haven't really gotten to the main reason for all of this. The picture is really not quite complete. These accomplishments would not have been possible without our wonderful and very precious players. You can't imagine what great times we had. We laughed a lot. We cried a little, but we were always ready for the next challenge. This they are the real reason. They are the honorees who should be standing next to me. I thank them for the memories. I thank you all for the memories and the honor which you have given me tonight. This picture is filled with those memories, and my cup really runneth over. Thank you all so much.
This has certainly been a superior class of inductees, and it's been my pleasure to be the substitute presenter of these awards. When the idea of creating the Hall of Fame was first presented to me, I didn't really grasp its full potential or its importance in preserving the history of collegiate tennis by honoring those who have played at the top of the game and those who have fostered the growth of the game. Colonial Williamsburg's motto that the future may learn from the past can be appropriately applied here. Betsy and I will always take great pride in creating an opportunity to honor deserving players, coaches, and individuals who've contributed to the growth of women's tennis. Thank you very much.
I can only say how proud William & Mary is to be the home of the Women's Collegiate Tennis Hall of Fame. It really means a lot to us, and what we saw tonight and the quality of the people, I'm speaking not just of athletic talent, but of character and commitment, the idea of teaching and giving and committing to those who come after. That's what we're all about, and that's what this program is all about, and that, I sense, is what this entire enterprise means to all of us. Now, I would like, Millie, where are you? You want to come up here to the stage? Come up here. I know all of us have had the joy of working with Millie, and I'm taking particular pleasure in doing something she hasn't ordered me to do and that she knew nothing about. So it gives me great pleasure, and I hope it does all of you, to recognize one of tennis's grandest ladies. She's made wonderful things happen at William & Mary, like these ITA events, and in some way I think she has done something remarkable for all of us who are here this evening. And now, Millie, may I ask Mark McCormick to step forward and undertake a very important and very happy responsibility. Mark?
Thank you, Tim. I would like to echo everything that's been said about Millie. The tennis center that so many people have congratulated me and Betsy for is something that Millie West did from the moment it was conceived until the moment it opened. We wrote some checks, but Millie made it happen, and she's still making it happen. And we've got a plaque here for her and a letter which says, I'll read the plaque, it says, "To Millie West for dedicated and loyal commitment to enhancing the growth and development of the sport of tennis on the collegiate level and within this community. This is a lifetime membership to the McCormick Nagelson Tennis Center in recognition of enthusiastic endeavors and continued service this first day of November 1997.
Okay, you guys, you took me by surprise. And as I said, this is not my night, it's their night. And I have to say that it really is a pleasure to work for these women who've done so much. A little of it rubs off on me just by trying to get them together and get things from them. But this honor right here, lifetime membership, now that is worth something. And Clay and Mark and President Sullivan and all of you, thank you very much, and I hope I can serve you for many more years. Good night.